Hey everyone, welcome back. Okay, we are in week 4, season 2, and we're talking about something I was actually going to wait on, but I think I don't know, I keep getting all these sort of signs of people who need this, and we're talking about forgiveness today. So I wasn't planning on doing that, but forgiveness, right, is defined as the intentional and voluntary process of, I was going to say forgiving someone, but no, of letting something go, basically. And so the first thing that we really, really have to keep in mind when it comes to talking about forgiveness is that, like all things, it's a choice that we have to make, right? So we have to choose to forgive. So when you say to someone, like, or you say to yourself, like, I can never forgive that person for that, then don't wonder why you haven't forgiven them. Because you said you can never forgive them, right? So when we decide to forgive, it is a choice that we have to make. And it is not because anybody deserves it, right? We can't forgive someone because we feel like they deserve it. That's not how life works. So we have to be intentional about forgiving. And how do I say this, like, with love? The first person we have to forgive is ourselves. There it is. With love, Michelina, right? We have to forgive ourselves before we can forgive anybody else. Because in our lives, the worst person who has done bad things is us. We're always going to be the worst offender, right? It doesn't matter what we've done. It's just that in our lives, the person with whom we spend the most time is ourselves. So we have to forgive ourselves for choices that we made that were us trying to survive, choices that we made when we didn't know any better, choices that we made when we were, trying too hard to be something we weren't, choices, we have to forgive ourselves for so much. We have to forgive ourselves for maybe not honoring our bodies, not honoring our minds, not honoring our spirituality, not honoring our value system, right? So the first person we have to forgive is us. I know, we don't love that. And then we can get on to forgiving other people, which is actually so much easier, right? So the way that we forgive other people, the way I forgive other people, let me just only speak for myself. There are like 4-step process and 7-stage and blah, 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 because forgiveness, like grief, is a process. There are steps and there are stages and there are things that have to happen. But something that helps me almost forgive people before they even make any mistakes is this idea that everybody is functioning to the best of their ability at their level of consciousness. It makes things so much easier when we think about things like that. Like, the reason why people do what they do is because they feel like they have a need that has to be fulfilled. If somebody hurt you, it's because they are functioning out of their own unfulfilled, unmet needs, right? It's never about you, right? It's never about intentionally trying to hurt you. So that should hopefully maybe make it easier to forgive. And you're like, well, you say that, but like, this person cheated on me. Yeah, okay, well, they obviously weren't satisfied with the relationship. And it doesn't mean that it's your fault. It means that maybe the two of you weren't communicating effectively, or the two of you weren't what each other needed. You can be everything for a person. If it's not what they need, it doesn't matter. So like, we really have to kind of come out of the place when we're talking about forgiveness. We have to come out of the emotional place and into the human space. And that's really tough to do because we get hurt, and then we don't function well anymore. The minute that we get hurt by something, our emotional processes take over. When that happens, our logical processes shut down, right? Our prefrontal cortex does not work when our limbic system is in full scale mode. Our limbic system is our emotional component of our brain. So what that means is that we have to feel it first, right? Pain is a process. Grief is a process. Forgiveness is a process, right? All of these emotions aren't one and done. Like they're verbs. They're things we do, you know? They're things that we feel. So you can't just say like, oh, well, he hurt me and I'm over it. Just no, that's not how it works. You have to feel that hurt. You have to acknowledge that hurt. You have to understand, okay, yeah, that does hurt. And why does that hurt? Right? It's a whole process. Forgiveness and forgiveness work, because it is work to get to that place. It has to filter through feeling and understanding and then moving on, right? So it's very hard to forgive people in the moment or in the emotional space, however long it takes you to get over it, if that makes any sense. So it's this idea that like if it takes you 5 months to feel the hurt, then it's going to take you some time to get through that hurt to eventually forgive the person. If you never feel the hurt, you experience it and then you shove it down, you're not going to be able to forgive. You can't forgive while you're still emotional or resenting or holding on to that emotion, right? So it is a definite process. I'm sure you've heard this before. I hope you've heard this before. Forgiveness is not for the other person. Forgiveness is for you, right? Forgiveness is to help you reframe your thoughts, reframe your emotional state, reframe the way you function. For me, like when I fucked up, I had to forgive me in order to move on. It doesn't matter who else feels what about me. If I can't live with myself, then what am I doing? Right? We have to be able to live with ourselves. And at the end of the day, the way we do that is to forgive ourselves for our shortcomings. When we don't forgive ourselves for whatever thing, what we're presupposing is that we never mess up. And we know that's not true, right? So eventually forgiveness will come very easy when you figure out like, oops, messed that one up. Moving forward, moving on. Because at the end of the day, like, you're not special and neither am I. You're gonna mess up. You're a human. None of us is perfect. None of us are unblemished. We all mess up. So it kind of just comes to this place where you're like, okay, well, can't believe I did that. Wish I didn't. Have to forgive myself. Sometimes that comes with being accountable to someone else. Have to go talk to this person and tell them I'm sorry. In my case, I was like, okay, I can't do that. I'm going to just plead guilty and move on because gotta take accountability. You messed up. And then that's it. Right? Like, it's just that simple. Did this thing, messed this thing up. Okay, here's how I feel now. Why did I do this? Why did this happen? Forgive myself, take accountability, move on. And then once you're good at forgiving yourself, it gets very easy to forgive other people. Because you're like, I don't like what they did, but I'm sure there's a reason that they did it. I'm sure it wasn't to hurt me, right? It's not forgetting, although honestly, I don't know why you'd waste that memory or that energy space in your mind to remember, but it's not forgetting and it's not excusing. It's not even accepting the behavior, right? Because this, going back to 2 weeks ago, is the difference between separating a person from their behavior. I don't like what you did, but I still love you. I forgive you for what you did. I don't think you're a bad person, but I don't like this behavior. Right? It comes to be like when we can separate the person from their behavior, we get to A, come up higher, and also B, we take things less personally, which means we're quicker and more apt to forgive. That's how it works. So, if you are a Christian, word to the wise, you are commissioned to forgive 7 times, 70 times. So like if your brother or sister, and by that I mean brother and sister in Christ, not your family, sins against you, you are not obligated, but you are expected to forgive. And also, to forgive as Christ forgives you. So that means without malice, without like the mentality that anyone owes you anything, without transaction, like it is just freely forgiven. It doesn't mean we don't hold the people accountable, right? Forgiveness is not lack of accountability. Okay, we just need to keep that in mind. So you can forgive someone for what they did, but fool me once, shame on you, fool me twice, shame on me. If they haven't learned, then you become an enabler, right? We don't want that. So on one hand, yes, forgive. Forgiveness is great. Give it out. But if you are still in relationship with that person, that doesn't mean you excuse the behavior. It doesn't mean you don't hold someone accountable, right? For example, like if let's say you're in a family, right? And your mom is abusive, bipolar, narcissistic, whatever. She attacks you verbally, emotionally. You can forgive her for that behavior. You can forgive her. Like, I don't know what she went through in her childhood to make her like that. That doesn't mean that you want to stick around and hang out with that. Distance yourself until she gets the help that she needs. You can still love her and keep her at a distance. I know you're like, oh my God, I can't do that to my mom. Well, we, as being accountable, responsible, forgiving, loving humans, we are expected to be able to distance where we have to distance. And there are some cases that are just too heavy for you, right? If it's heavy, you ain't ready. If it's light, it's right. You ever hear that? It's this idea that if it's an emotionally heavy thing, you're not ready to deal with it, right? If it's light, that means that you've come far enough that you can deal with it. So the first step in dealing with any like problematic person or any problematic situation or laying things down that are too heavy is forgiveness. It changes everything. But of course, you have to feel it before you can heal it, which not including in this, but you can't forgive until you feel first. So if you're trying to, unless you're like Mother Teresa, right? In which case she could forgive anybody before they even messed up. I think my mom is like that. Like, she could forgive me before I even messed up. It doesn't even matter what I did, right? She like kind of just had the expectation, like no matter what, my kid's gonna mess up. And then as soon as you have that expectation, when they do, you're like, oh, okay, that's fine. Not surprised. Just need to make sure I hold them accountable. So there was never a thing like that I was too embarrassed to tell my mom about, and so like, even when everything happened, I was like, Mom, just so you know, like, this happened. And she was like, oh my God, what did you do? But I love you anyway, right? She was with me the whole time. So it's just this idea that sometimes parents are good at it. Sometimes they're not. But it's this idea of forgiving comes when we expect ourselves to mess up. Unforgiveness comes when we're shocked at this idea that somebody could ever hurt me. Like, you're not special. Like, of course you're going to get hurt down here. Of course you're going to fall short of your own expectations. Of course someone's going to fall short of your expectations. We are 7 billion different people. Like, of course. Why are you shocked? I mean that with love. But the sooner we learn that, okay, yep, people are going to disappoint us. Yes, we're going to disappoint ourselves. Bad things happen. People act selfishly. There we go. Right. So how do we forgive? We forgive by, one, identifying, who hurt us or who made us feel some type of way, right? Identify who hurt us, how they hurt us. You don't have to know why they hurt you, right? That might not be something you understand. You might not know them well enough to know why they did that, But identify who it was, what they did, how it hurt you, right? After you've already felt the hurt. Once you feel it, you can heal it. So feel it first. Then when you're tired of feeling it, right? You're like, I don't want to feel this way against this person anymore. I don't want to think about them this way. I don't want to carry this extra weight around. That's when you can identify, okay, this person hurt me, which we don't like to say, right? We don't like to feel, but we might as well just get comfortable because, like, we're human. This person hurt me. They probably didn't mean to. Probably what I should be saying is, I was hurt by this thing, right? Take that accountability on ourselves. I was hurt by this thing that happened. I don't know if they meant it or not, but I'm going to forgive them for doing it. Then you have choices. You're like, okay, well, they're my immediate, like, frame of influence, sphere of influence. So how do I act around them now? If you're with a significant other, like, okay, do I stay with them or don't I stay with them? Depending on what it is, you know? If you are engaged to somebody and you just found out they're cheating on you, you have to figure something out. You know, you have to figure out, hey, do I want to stay with them and make this work and, you know, have faith that they won't hurt me again? Or do I want to call it quits? Choices come, but with forgiveness, which again, only happens after we feel, because pain has momentum, but once we feel something, we can heal something and we can forgive from that moment. But like, it took me, I don't even know, like a year to be able to really even think about forgiving myself, you know, because like, you're like, wow, I can't believe I messed up so bad. And like, really at the end of the day, like, we all mess up so bad. You know, we all do. We're all going to. So, the thing that is counterproductive to forgiveness, I'll just tell you this real quick, is comparing degrees of what someone did or didn't do to you, right? That comes out of like a petty place. Like, I say, stay away from it. This idea that like, oh, well, yeah, I might have, you know, hurt them, but they hurt me worst. Or, you know, yeah, maybe I've done this thing one time, but they've done it like 3 times, right? I'm being a little bit childish here, but my larger point is, don't compare degrees of slight. That's not going to help you forgive anyone. You know what I mean? If you're doing it in such a way that it's like, well, they didn't kill anybody, even that doesn't really help. You know, I know people say, oh, well, just, you know, try to weigh it in the balance. No, that's not really effective either. Don't do that. It's a terrible idea. Comparison in any capacity is a terrible idea. Don't do it. Just don't. Right? But because you can compare yourself to other people, you compare what you've accomplished, you've compared how you've messed up, you compared anything. It just doesn't go well. Just don't do it. You have to forgive for forgiveness' sake. You have to be intentional. It has to be voluntary. Nobody can force you to do it. It has to come from you. Like most of this stuff that we talk about, inside out transformation, right? It has to come from the inside. And you know, here's how you know if it's maybe time to forgive. When somebody's name gets mentioned, if like immediate like anger or frustration or sadness kind of is accompanied with them, you're harboring some big feelings that you're going to have to lay down. Because that, holding on to that, is like drinking poison and expecting somebody else to die. Like, it's not going to work. You know, holding on to that resentment, holding on to that bitterness, holding on to these negative emotions that come from unforgiveness will keep you at whatever level you're at. Just going to tell you. So if you want to evolve and you want to, you know, transform and you want to come up higher, you have to lay down those hurt, resentful emotions. And that's not easy to do. I'll tell you that. It's not easy, but it is super, super worth it. So that's on forgiveness. Again, I am taking coaching inquiries. So www.michelinaeichel.com for coaching inquiries. If you like what you're hearing, subscribe. Subscribe to us here, support the show or the company. We love what we do here. Okay, guys, I'll see you next time.